Welcome to the D-Spot podcast. Dr. Dana McNeil is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in working with couples using the Gottman method. Her evidence-based practice provides support for the wide range of relationship issues that modern couples face. By using her open, affirming, and outside-of-the-box thinking, Dr. Dana is able to approach her work with couples by bringing both insights and tools that reflect the realities of today's complicated relationships. Dr. Dana features guests on her podcast that include a unique array of celebrities, CEOs, influencers, and everyday folks who are all working on navigating new conversations about how society views what goes into a successful relationship. And now, here's your host, Dr. Dana McNeil.
Hello, and welcome to the D-Spot podcast. I am Dr. Dana McNeil, and I'm your host for a podcast that's all about relationships and the people in them. Our goal in this show is to change the conversation about going to couples therapy and explore what defines a healthy relationship. Today, I am delighted to be introducing you to a friend of mine, Tilly Storm. She is the host of a podcast called Multiorgasmic Mama, which is fabulous. It's a mouthful, it's a tongue twister, and it's very evocative. So, hi, Tilly. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Good. So tell us about the Multiorgasmic Mama podcast. What do you do? I mean, I think we can kind of guess, but tell us about it from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am a holistic sex and intimacy coach, and I help women who lack desire, who want better orgasms, who want to experience more intimacy and connection with their partner to do that. So the podcast, we've been going for almost 5 years now and over 230,000 downloads and
wow, fantastic.
All sorts of goodness on there.
And Tilly and I met when I was given the opportunity to be on her podcast, and it is a great podcast. Multiple things discussed, different aspects of sex, how it impacts the relationship, how it impacts you as an individual. She's got a lot to share with us. So my first question is for those listening, what is a holistic sex therapist? What does that mean, love? Tell us what it means to have holistic sex.
Yeah, well, a holistic sex coach is basically a step further than what you would be allowed to do in a traditional therapy setting. Not anything like hands-on or anything, but in terms of pulling in some of the more energetic and spiritual aspects into sexuality and really looking at it and addressing everything from including those things, which generally isn't allowed in a sort of practice space. So holistic meaning that we're looking at all of the different holistic sex techniques like breath, sound, movement, focus, intention, the energy you're showing up with, all of these different parts and pieces of us that really affect our sexuality, but we might not have the space to really go there and address the energetic side of our sexuality in these traditional spaces. So that's kind of
who those of us who are like basic and don't know your world. Does that mean like we've heard of like tantric sex? Like, is that what you're talking about? Something like that, where it's like you're moving as a unit and you're helping like the breath and you're facing your partner and is that the idea?
Well, in my couples coaching, yes, it's very much everything. Every program I have is very much based in tantric principle, neo-tantra, and classical tantric principles. Yes. However, with my women who lack desire and want better orgasms, which is mostly who I help, we use the practice called the Jade Egg practice, the ancient Taoist practice, to help women create sensate focus and more of a connection with their body and their sexuality through this specific practice.
Okay. And so how does a woman know that she lacks desire? Because that's a really important topic, right? Are there symptoms that you're like, okay, typically, because not everybody's the same, so I'm like a stereotypical, but like if I was Hody-do living at my house and I'm like, I wonder if I lack sexual desire, how would I know?
Oh, there's a lot of telltale signs. So number one, you turn away sexual advances from your partner a lot.
So it's not like when the kids are in the kitchen and I'm trying to cook them some eggs in the morning and honey pie comes and gives me a kiss on the neck and I'm like, I can't right now, I'm doing stuff. Is it that way, or it's like no matter what, we're like on an easy breezy weekend and I'm like, not so much?
Yeah. So it means that you're giving a lot of excuses, like, I'm too tired. I don't have the time for this right now. Yes. So in a way, yes, but in another way, no, because obviously there's times when it's not appropriate, right? But you lack desire if you find yourself constantly turning down your partner's advances, never initiating sex or sexual connection with your partner. It's just not that important to you. You might find yourself just saying yes just to get your partner off your back, just to please and appease. And then you secretly start resenting your partner and starting to shut down your emotional and sexual connection with them because you only view it as something that's for them and not as something that's for you.
So you don't find yourself craving it. You're not like, hey, I'm kind of feeling myself today. I might get a little funky town with you. You're never in that space or rarely in that space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I can hear a lot of overstressed soccer coach moms who have like busy lives in the background being, it's like, I don't have an opportunity to do that. I have so many demands coming at me that just feels like something on the to-do list. It's not that I don't desire it. So how would they know which camp they fit in?
That would be you. So if what you described, if you're a soccer coach mom and you're just too busy to get down with it, then that's showing you that it is not important to you because you prioritize things that are important to you. You make time for things that are important to you. If it's not important to you, then it's not important, and we can't change that. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your relationship, but people who they find that, oh, wow, yeah, this is creating more issues in my relationship than I thought, that, a lot of the women that I end up working with are just like, I feel guilty that I can't give my partner more of what I feel like they deserve. Like, I feel bad about that. Or I feel like I'm broken because I just don't have that. I feel like the libido fairy skipped over me and I don't feel like a sexual woman anymore. So you'll know that you have a lack of libido desire issue when those are the thoughts going through your head.
Okay. So would these same people who identify with lack of libido, would they have always had it as a lack of libido, or was at the beginning of the relationship, they do what we all do and like get it on like Donkey Kong, and then we have kids, and then there's like some kind of mental shift that we need to like correct, like, or have they always had lack of libido?
It's both. So there definitely it's probably about 50-50 with all of the clients that I've helped, is that about half of them, when I ask and take assessments, when I first talk to them, like, has this always been an issue for you? And they'll say, yeah. About half of them, they've just never felt a lot of sexual desire before. They haven't really felt like sex was really that important, that it was kind of like an okay, nice time to have with your partner, but it didn't. That was about it. Again, it was just kind of like something you had to do to fulfill your relationship obligations, whatever that underlying social contract is for you, but it's not something that they really craved. And then I'll find about the other half of people, it's that they did have wild sexual desire and they felt really into themselves in their younger years, but maybe they had a kid or two or three or four or five. And then the sexuality and the relationship definitely starts to dwindle because they haven't put any time, effort, attention, or energy into this area of their lives, thinking they could just go on and on and on and things would magically get better. And as you know, that's not how it works.
Sure. It rarely gets better when we ignore things. Okay. Do you find that many of your clients are because they don't actually know what is sexually appealing to them? Like they haven't spent time exploring their own bodies or their own sexuality or what makes them achieve orgasm individually. And so they're kind of not in tune of like letting their partner know what might help them.
Precisely. Yes. This is many, many women, is that they don't really know what they want or like. So how could they possibly ask for it? So they're raised on the Disney Prince Charming comes in and gives me all the pleasure that I feel like I deserve. And he's supposed to know everything about how to give me that pleasure. And it's like an unconscious thing that we do. It's just from our conditioning, and it's not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you because you got that. It's just what society perpetuates, is that we expect our partners to know how to give us the pleasure we seek deep down. And that's ridiculous. Your partner cannot read your mind. Your partner does not know what you want and like. And how could they if you don't even know what that is? So many women haven't even explored their bodies sexually because they have a lot of embedded shame or guilt from religion, sometimes just from sexual abuse, from little t or big T sexual traumas, from a really terrible or disempowering birth experience. All of these things can really shut someone down from even wanting to explore themselves sexually. So they just don't. And then they expect that their partner should just make it all better. And that's not how it works.
How do you help them start to talk about that guilt and shame? Because they may not even know that they have it, right? They've been carrying around in their mental backpack for so long that, or they had an experience when they were a teenager and they decided they're naughty, or their religion told them that that's not what nice women do, right? How do you help them start unpacking if they have that belief inside of them?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely some prerequisite things and a level of self-awareness that people must have before they even dive into working with me. And honestly, working with someone like you is, I don't want to say a requirement, but it's
helpful.
Almost all of my clients have been to tons of therapy before. Let's put it that way. So they have a level of self-awareness that maybe there is some underlying shame or guilt or fear or disgust around their body or sexuality. So they are already linking these things together. In my own journey, I had linked that together. I had a partner at the time who told me that, who just made the point and brought it to my attention, you can only orgasm in one way. And I started thinking about that, being like, you're right. Like, I can only orgasm when I'm on top. And that feels really limiting to me. And I had already done lots of yoga and therapy, all these sorts of things. So I kind of felt like, oh, wow, do I feel this way because of the religion I got brought up in that really hardcore shamed me around my body and sex? And I was like, I know this has something to do with it. So when I started my own journey, that was definitely a big piece of it, was like working through that shame and guilt. So, doing things like going talk to you and having regular therapy sessions to bring about this level of self-awareness, and doing things like a yoga practice just to begin to connect with your body on a deeper level, I feel are massively beneficial.
You probably just blew somebody's mind right now, not even intentionally, when you said, I had a partner that pointed out I can only have an orgasm on top. And I hear some women going to be like, she figured out how to have an orgasm. I don't care what position you have to be in. She had one, right? So can you talk a little bit more about what that would mean? If I can only regularly have an orgasm in a certain position, that's something that maybe I should look at, or think that there could be other ways that I could do it. And that's something that you could help with.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm an expert at. I'm an expert at helping women ignite that sexual desire and becoming multi-orgasmic, so they don't feel limited in their experience of pleasure. So it's absolutely possible for you to be able to experience all the different kinds of orgasms, all the different versions of pleasure, and to experience them in different ways. But most women, like you said, are only, if they're lucky, having an orgasm at all. Usually it's just a clitoral orgasm, but that's definitely not the end all be all. If you read Cosmo and Vogue and all these other ridiculous magazines, in my opinion, that's all that they really talk about, is that,
like the scissor handstand, downward facing unicorn pose, or whatever is in Cosmo this month.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's just all about the clitoris. And a lot of this stems from some early sex research that came out decades ago, that, the clitoris is the sexual organ in women. And that's bullshit. It's our brain, first of all. Our brain is our biggest sex organ. So again, there's a lot of popular or modern articles like this that just make the clitoral orgasm to be the end all and be all of sex. And I do not agree with that at all. There is so much more to experience. There's cervical orgasms, there's full body and energy orgasms, and there's different ways to activate the body and to experience pleasure. And if you're only having that clitoral orgasm, it's like you're just reaching the tip of the iceberg, quite literally, because the clitoris is the tip of an iceberg, right? So yeah, there's a lot more pleasure that you can experience if you really want it. But most people don't even know that that's even possible, or they just don't believe it's possible for them.
So I have clients that come in and their partners are frustrated because prior to them getting together, they overused a vibrator, right? Because that's the quick, easy go-to. And they report that they're overly stimulated and they can't get stimulated by being with their partner. So I think that's probably encouraging for some people to hear, like, well, if that one's off use or overused or numb now, that there's other accesses that they can have to have an orgasm. You probably just got some people super excited.
Absolutely. And, there's the thing that we get to say that if it's not a problem for you and you don't feel limited by this, then it's not a problem. And you don't have to create a problem out of a non-problem, right? I have friends that know exactly what I do and they know that I'm an expert in this, but they are happy with their clitoral orgasms. And that's freaking awesome. Great. Go be empowered that way. Love it. But there are other women that feel really limited in that, and they get frustrated about it because they know that there's more that they could be experiencing, and they want to experience that more to sex than just that one little thing, right? That 5 seconds of pleasure or whatever. And I can show them how to do that. So we do have many women that join my programs because of vibrator dependency. I personally believe that it does desensitize you. I've seen it many times. And again, not knocking anybody or trying to shame anyone. If it works for you, that's awesome. But I'm just a big believer in educating women on how much more there is to experience so that you don't miss out on that, because it really is.
So how would a partner contact you, or what would they say to their partner to get them on board to do this? Because I'm imagining if let's say I am a male partner at home and I know my honey pie doesn't have any libido these days, and I learn about your program and I'm like, this sounds great, I'm on board. How do I let my partner know that I think this is something we should contemplate without possibly hurting their feelings or making them feel defensive?
Right. I probably wouldn't know what to tell you other than had you asked me this a couple of months ago, because I'm just one of those people. I'm like, just freaking tell them, right? I don't know. But I actually had a client recently who just finished the program about a month ago. And her partner found my podcast. And he had listened to every single episode. I mean, there's over 200 episodes, every single one of them. And he had listened to, he's like, oh my God, I know my wife needs this. Like, she had a 1.5-year-old at the time, and they had a great sex life before. And she had trauma and abuse when she was younger. And after having her child, it started to come to the surface. And she experienced what many women experience after birth is like, just disinterested. A big life transition like becoming a mom or going through a divorce can really bring up some big things. So she definitely had that come up for her after having her baby, and her partner told her about the podcast. So she started listening to it. She had actually never had an orgasm in her entire life, 37 years old, but she still enjoyed sex and enjoyed the connection and everything. After doing the program, when she had started, she was like, my relationship is doomed. Like, I don't know how I'm ever going to just come back from, all of the stuff that's come up for me, the trauma, the birth experience, and the fact that I never had an orgasm. And now I just don't care about sex at all. Wow. It saved her relationship. She said that. Those are her words. She's like, she finally had orgasms. It wasn't just one. She became multi-orgasmic the first time she ever had an orgasm. She had 3 in the first sexual experience.
Wow.
Yeah. So
go girl, good for her. Okay. So do you find that because like as a couples therapist, I find many of my clients are embarrassed that they need to come to couples therapy and it's the last stop, it's the last resort, it's a negative thing, we're doomed. What is the vibe for people that are contacting you? Are they feeling guilt and shame that they're needing to come hang out with you? Or are they like, yeah, this is a good thing. This is like going to Disneyland. Like, what's the attitude?
It's a little mixed, really. There's definitely some people that feel that, dang, like I got to do all this work and it's going to be hard and a long, arduous journey. And I try to help them understand that you're working on your sex life. Like it gets to be pleasurable.
There's a good thing happening.
Right. Yeah. Like you're only doing the work so you can experience more pleasure. So it doesn't have to be decades of being on a healing journey. So I definitely have some of those people that have been searching for the thing. They are just convinced that they are broken and that they constantly have to be looking to heal themselves in some way or another. And then they come and do my program and they're like, dang, Tilly, I wish I would have just started with this because this was like the complete transformational journey to help me remember, number one, I'm not broken. My body isn't broken. I am whole and complete. I'm already a multi-orgasmic genius inside. All of that is already there. It's just pleasure blocks. Our nervous systems only have a certain capacity to experience pleasure. So when you come work with me, it's like we're busting through all of these blocks to reconnect you with your original sexual essence, which is completely multi-orgasmic. You came here being multi-orgasmic. Babies masturbate in the womb. Like we are sexual creatures that didn't just go away. The libido fairy did not pass you up. You have it inside. You're just disconnected from it.
That feels good. That feels like something that people can get into. That's the opposite. That's reframing that guilt and shame. It's just that you haven't known it was there and it was available to you. Right. Mm-hmm. So what would couples expect if they're contacting you and they're like, okay, we're on board? What's their journey going to look like with you? I know that you had the program 5 days to epic sex, right? Is that something that couples they're going to just only hang out with you 5 days? Like, what does it look like?
No. That's just my free podcast training. It's a private podcast training. So I have my public one, the Multiorgasmic Mama, and then there's a free training that is literally like, if you are resonating with everything I'm saying, I'm like, oh my God, please tell me more. You're going to want to go download that training. It's free. Okay. It's only if you download it and opt into it. So that is just an audio training where you're going to hear me talk about all of these things in great detail, and I can take you further into it. And the opportunity to work with me is through my group coaching program, the Essentially Embodied Woman. This is our complete transformational journey in transforming your relationship with your body and sexuality. So if you want to have that desire again, if you want to want sex, if you want to become multi-orgasmic, if you want to have these things that I'm sharing with you, that's the program that most of our clients end up going through. And we do have a couples program as well. That's a completely different journey. I'm a big proponent of doing sexuality work on yourself before you go in and do that with your partner, because it changes the relationship.
There's the me stuff and then there's the we stuff, right? Yeah. I got to get the me stuff sorted before I start practicing on the we.
Precisely. And with sex and sexuality, it's always a you thing. So it's always a you thing.
So what would your clients expect to see change in themselves? Is it a mental state? Is it a physical state? Is it tell them what they're preparing for? Because I know they're getting all jazzed and they're like, where's the address? What's the email? How do I get all the things? What are they going to get to experience with you?
Yeah, I mean, it is deep work. And I've had many women who've done the program say, I ask them, and there's many interviews of former clients on my podcast, but they'll say, someone who needs to join this program is number one, every woman, but also you got to have some courage and some heart to do this type of work, because you are in for the deepest of the deep, right? You're not getting away on any surface level sexual self-empowerment bullshit. I don't do that. I don't do band-aids. I am a true believer in going to the root of the issues and healing and integrating everything in the way of your pleasure. So you are in for a complete storm. My name is very appropriate for what I do. We're going in, we're swirling all that shit around, bringing it to the surface. We're healing and integrating it so you can get back to your pleasure and get off the hamster wheel of your healing and integration and just finally be done with that. Because like I said, people can go on these journeys and feel like there's no way out. Like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get there. And they'll go for decades doing this type of stuff. You don't have to, this does not have to be your experience. You can be done with this and actually learn how to experience epic sex and pleasure and live that way. So yeah, that's what you're in.
I like the message of hope that there is something different that can happen and that there's support and that there's help around it. And I'm really grateful that you have the program that you have, because you're so approachable and you make it so like, hey, you can do this. It's not crazy or scary or something that is going to be intimidating, because we get in our heads. It's about our bodies, right? And so we're like, I was going to judge or whatever. So I'm grateful that you exist and that you have a program, and I can attest to how delightful you are and that you are exactly like you are right now on the podcast. So people are going to be safe with you.
Oh, well, likewise, my love. I appreciate all the work you do in the world for couples and helping them to create a deeper level of self-awareness that they never would have otherwise. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, how they get in contact with you, what are the programs, give us the details, and I'll also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely go to the link in the show notes. The website is www.tillystorm.com. For whatever reason, you have to put in the www. So do that and you'll go right there. And that free podcast training, 5 days to epic sex and pleasure for high achieving moms. You can be a cat mom or a dog mom. We'll let it slide. I'm just kidding. You don't have to be a mom, but that's who I speak to, because that's,
I hear you. And any last tips that anybody who's like considering, okay, I'm deciding if I'm a good candidate for something like this, how will they know that they're ready?
Yeah, I think you'll know once you listen to either my public podcast, the Multiorgasmic Mama, or the 5-day training. I'm definitely not for everyone. Like I said, the work that I do is very deep, and it's for people who do have the courage to go there, because it can be somewhat of an intimidating, scary journey for a lot of people. But I do make it feel as safe as possible, and that's one compliment I hear a lot, is that I make what seems challenging and maybe a little bit scary seem not so scary. And we actually laugh our asses off on our way to becoming multi-orgasmic. So it's great.
All right, sweetness. Thank you so very much for giving us your time and your wisdom and your grace. And I'm really grateful that we have this resource, because this is a thing. We all have this thing, right? Is it COVID? Is it because we had a baby? Is it because we don't really know how to get in touch with our bodies? Is it because we don't know what an orgasm is? And you help them sort that out. And I think that that's an important resource for us to have. So thank you so much, Tilly. I'm grateful for you.
Thanks, Dana.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
This has been the D-Spot Podcast with Dr. Dana McNeil. To learn more about Dr. Dana's practice, simply visit us at www.danamcneil.com.